So one of the hardest kind of polynomials to factor are the polynomials where you have ax squared plus bx plus c, where this number is not 1. If that number is 1, it's relatively easy to factor, but when it's not 1, it becomes very difficult. So if I'm factoring, let's just start with this one, 7x squared minus 17x plus 6. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to split this middle into two special numbers. I'm going to try to break negative 17 down in a way where it will help me factor this. So what I'll do first is I'll multiply the 7 times 6, and I will get 42. So now I want to find all the numbers that multiply to 42, and I want to pick the pair that adds to negative 17. So I could have 42 and 1, or negative 42 and negative 1. Now, when you start to think about it, since the middle is negative, I'm going to want both numbers to be negative. So I know this is not going to be my answer. Negative 42 plus negative 1 is not negative 17, so that's not going to be my answer. Some other things that multiply to 42, negative 21 and negative 2, but that doesn't add to negative 17. Negative 14 and negative 3, and basically I'm just dividing by 1, 2, and 3. This one does. This one does add to negative 17. So these are going to be the pair I want to use. So what we'll do is we'll have 7x squared, and I'll break the 17x into these two special numbers. So we have the 14 and the 3. So I haven't really changed the value of this, I just split this into two different terms. So then we'll group these together, the first two and the last two, and we'll take common factors out. So the first parenthesis, I have 7x, and I'm left with x minus 2. For the second set of parentheses, I wanted to match this one. The whole goal of this factoring is I want the second one to match this one. So if I want it to match, I have to take out the negative 3. And so then I'm left with x, and then if I take 6 and divide by negative 3, I have negative 2. So the biggest thing is I want to be able to have these match. And now, since you see that these both have the same factor in it, essentially I'm going to take this and I'm going to factor it out of the whole thing. So my final answer, the thing that's repeated is going to be the x minus 2, because if I think of like a big set of parentheses, I'm pulling that whole chunk out, and then what's left is the 7x and the minus 3. So there is my complete factorization. Now, this is one way to do the problem. Now you'll notice that I put the negative 14x and then the negative 3x. You could switch those as well. So I could put negative 3x first and negative 14x first, and you'll see that I'll get the same answer, because here in the first two I just pull out x and I'm left with 7x minus 3. So to make that match, I'd want 7x here. I'd have to take a negative 2 out, which will leave 7x minus 3. And then I pull that whole big chunk out, so I have 7x minus 3, and then the remaining things in front, which are the x minus 2. So you'll notice you get the same thing when you switch those two middle terms, so it honestly doesn't matter. Let's go ahead and try one more. So let's go ahead and try 4x squared. We'll put a minus 3 here, and we'll put a positive 1 here. So a similar kind of problem. So what I'll do is I'll multiply the 4 and negative 3, which is negative 12. And then I want to find two numbers that multiply to negative 12 that add to positive 1. So I could go through all the factors. So I could go 12 and negative 1, negative 12 and 1. Those don't add to positive 1, so those aren't it. 6 and negative 2, negative 6 and 2. Those add to 4 and negative 4, so those aren't it. And so I'm just kind of going by. So I divided by 12 by 1, 12 by 2. Now I'll go 3. So it could be 4 and negative 3, or negative 4 and 3. But here is the pair I want, because 4 plus negative 3 is positive 1, so that's the pair I want. So when I rewrite my problem up here, 4x squared, and then I will make it positive 4x and minus 3x, or I could switch them, it doesn't honestly matter. So I have it split up like this. So I make the 1x, 4x, and negative 3x, because those are the special numbers that multiply to negative 12 and add to positive 1. Then I'll do the same thing, the first two and last two. So I'll take 4x out of that. It'll leave me with x plus 1. So now I want to end up with x plus 1 over here, because if I don't end up with that, it's not factorable. So in this case, I'll take out a negative 3 to make it x plus 1. So really, if the first thing is negative, you pretty much are always going to take the negative out. And so now these match. So when I take that chunk out, that's going to be my first factor. And then these remaining guys, because I've pulled that whole factor out, are going to be my second factor. So that's the factorization. And if you ever want to check if you've done it right, you can just FOIL. So 4x times x is 4x squared. 4x times 1 is positive 4x. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3, and negative 3 times x is negative 3x. So putting those together is the positive 1x, which is what I started with. So that's always a really easy way to check if you've got the right factorization. So hopefully this helps. If you have more questions, obviously give me an email and we'll work some more.